Hey, this is Pastor Bunjee Garrett, and I want to take some time today to present you with another word of encouragement. Well, you might not know this, but last night marks the 87th anniversary of the Kristallnacht, which is German for Night of Broken Glass. It was on the night of November 9th, 1938. That's when the National Socialist German Workers' Party, otherwise known as the Nazis, they instigated a nationwide anti-Jewish riot by German soldiers and citizens who went and vandalized and terrorized Jewish communities in Germany and Austria. According to one report, it was late on the night of November the 9th. That's when Nazi leaders in Munich gave instructions for the riot to spread throughout Germany and its annexed territories. And in the middle of the night and into the next day, groups of Nazis affiliated with the SA, the SS, and Hitler Youth, they began this assault. It was in small towns and major cities where they rampaged through their communities. Sometimes they wore their Nazi uniforms. Other times they appeared in civilian clothes. Ordinary German civilians often chose to join in the riots, and the perpetrators and victims frequently knew each other, especially in small towns and villages. Sadly, groups of Nazis destroyed more than 1,400 synagogues throughout Germany and its annexed territories, and they also destroyed other Jewish religious and communal buildings, including prayer houses located in Jewish cemeteries. In most cases, local Nazis set fire to the synagogues, and sometimes they used explosives to destroy buildings. And, local firefighters were told to stand by. They received orders to prevent flames simply from spreading to other nearby buildings. As a result, Germany's synagogues were burned to the ground throughout the night, and the next day it was, just viewed by the public. And in many cases, the burning synagogues became public spectacles with crowds of onlookers. And in many towns, German school children were brought to watch and join in the public spectacle. The Nazis also desecrated religious texts and other sacred Jewish objects and clothing, such as prayer shawls. And, the Nazis destroyed the Holy Torah scrolls by throwing them onto the ground and by tearing them up and burning them, tossing them into rivers. And in some cases, the perpetrators forced the local rabbis and other members of the Jewish community to watch or even to participate in these sacrilegious actions. Groups of Nazis vandalized thousands of Jewish-owned stores and businesses. They shattered the glass storefronts, with destroying the windows. They destroyed shopwares and painted Nazi graffiti on Jewish properties. And while all this took place during the early hours of November the 10th, we must not fail to realize that the night of broken glass and the Holocaust that would follow, this was a culmination of almost 5 years of Nazi propaganda, boycotts, and threats. Well, here we are. It's been 87 years since the Night of Broken Glass, and the Holocaust survivors are now warning us that the levels of anti-Zionism in post-October 7 era are comparable to the pre-Holocaust Jewish hatred of 1938. This was precisely the point that one Holocaust survivor named Walter Bingham presented when he declared this, and I quote him here: "We live in an era equivalent to 1938, where synagogues are burned and people in the street are being attacked." Thankfully, Bingham, who is now 101 years old, was saved through the Kinder Transport Rescue Mission from Germany to England in the late 1930s. And while it's true that his parents perished during the Holocaust, it's also true that some 6 million Jews were then murdered at the hands of Hitler's National Socialist German Workers' Party. And it's sad to say that things are beginning to look a lot like history is about to repeat itself. This includes the anti-Israel hatred that is clearly seen in the campus riots that far-left activists have engaged in since the October 7 attack. These anti-Israel activists openly call for the genocide of the Jews as they chant, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." And most Democratic leaders refuse to denounce these protests. And what's even worse is that we're also witnessing Democrats spreading anti-Israel rhetoric time and time again. And listen, far-left Democrats in the House of Representatives are failing to represent their Jewish constituents. And they regularly vote legislation that actually denies rights for Israel. And the reason why? It's because the far left is filled with anti-Israel activists. Sadly, we're watching the same anti-Israel hatred continuing to be normalized on the far right as well. And while there are still many conservative Christians who understand that those who bless Israel will be blessed, there are many young conservatives who are being led astray by the anti-Israel propagandists like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Mark Dice, and Nick Fuentes, people who are promoting a brand of Christian nationalism, which is actually preparing our nation for the days when the nations of the world will be gathered together against Israel. Proof of my point can be found in Zechariah chapter 14. It's here where the prophet Zechariah declares, "Behold, the day of the Lord is coming, and your spoil will be divided in your midst. For I will gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem. The city shall be taken, the houses rifled, and the women ravished. Half of the city shall go into captivity, but the remnant of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then the Lord will go forth and fight against those nations, as he fights in the day of battle. And in that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two, from east to west, making a very large valley. Half of the mountain shall move toward the north, and half of it toward the south. Then you shall flee through my mountain valley. For the mountain valley shall reach Azal. Yes, you shall flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Thus the Lord my God will come, and all the saints with you." Now, here in this prophecy, we learn about the final battle that takes place just before the return of Jesus Christ. And while there are many who wonder why the U.S. seems to be missing from end times prophecy, well, I invite you to consider the prophetic promise that Zechariah is presenting here as he informs us here that all the nations of the world will be gathered together to battle against Jerusalem. And I believe that this includes the USA. The prophet Joel confirms this in the 3rd chapter of his book, where the Lord declares, "Behold, in those days and at that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. They have also divided up my land." So according to this prophetic promise, there's coming a day when the Lord is going to gather all the nations of the world to the valley of Jehoshaphat. And it's there where the Lord is going to punish all the nations who divided up the land of Israel with the promise of a two-state solution. And yeah, that includes the USA. And listen, it's here in this same prophecy where the Lord promises to punish both Lebanon and Philistia, which is now known as the Gaza Strip. Here's how he put it, beginning at verse 4, where the Lord declares, "Indeed, what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Sidon?" That's Lebanon. "And all the coasts of Philistia?" That's Gaza. And then he asks, "Will you retaliate against me? But if you retaliate against me, swiftly and speedily I will return your retaliation upon your own head. Because you have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my prized possessions. Also the people of Judah and the people of Jerusalem you have sold to the Greeks, that you may remove them far from their borders. Behold, I will raise them out of the place to which you have sold them, and will return your retaliation upon your own head. I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the people of Judah, and they will sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off. For the Lord has spoken. Proclaim this among the nations. Prepare for war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble and come, all you nations, and gather together all around. Cause your mighty ones to go down there, O Lord. Let the nations be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there I will sit to judge all surrounding nations. Here in this prophecy, we find the Lord, he's promising to punish Lebanon, he's promising to punish Gaza, as well as all the surrounding nations, the nations that surround the land of Israel. And the reason why is because they divided up the land of promise and sold the children of Israel into slavery. This punishment will also fall on the USA. And the reason why is because we too have allowed the nation of Israel to be divided. And it's sad to say that the anti-Israel propagandists on both the left and the right, they're leading us down this path. And those who insist that they're just America First nationalists, they're failing to realize that their movement is only inciting the anger of God as they lead us closer and closer to the battle of Armageddon. As we memorialize this night of broken glass, we do well to warn the next generation about the anti-Israel hatred which will eventually result in the wrath of God. And with this as our goal, I encourage every Christian to spend some time studying the end-time prophecies that point to the day when all the nations of the world will be gathered together against Israel and then be punished for their hatred of God's chosen people. In this way, I believe that our study of end-time events will help us to have a better understanding of God's plan for the future. And with this information, we're going to be better equipped to fight the good fight of faith, and all for the glory of God.